Before I graduated college, I produced $2.5 million in paint jobs using employee painters, and since then, I've produced over $50 million in paint jobs using subcontractors. I've personally helped hundreds of painting contractors transition from paying hourly to their painters or crews to paying per job, which has saved them millions and millions of dollars in profit to their bottom line because they don't have people milking the clock anymore. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to make the switch and transition to paying per job to start saving you money and time. So we're going to go through 4 things in this video. First, we're going to look at why you should make the switch to paying per job instead of per hour or per day. Then we're going to talk about the problem to look out for. There is a problem with paying per job. We want to talk about what that problem is and how you can deal with it. Then we'll talk about how to make the switch. So once you decided you want to switch from hourly or daily pay to pay per job, how do you actually do that? And then finally, we'll talk about the math stuff. How do you calculate payouts? What about different people who get paid different wages and so on? So let's dive in. There are 2 main reasons that you should consider switching to pay per job, and the first one we're going to talk about is incentives. So as human beings, we are driven by incentives, and you have people who are going to take advantage of the incentives, so they may not even have good intentions. Those are the people who are milking the clock, who are actively taking their sweet time, they're taking extra breaks, they're just in no rush at all, they leave touch-ups, they literally don't care. And in some ways, it benefits them for a job to take longer because they're getting paid hourly anyways. And so they might as well take a while, they might as well take breaks because they're getting paid hourly. Whether they're working hard or they're not working hard, whether they're exerting a lot of effort or not exerting effort, they're getting paid the same. And so a bad intentioned employee is going to take advantage of that. But then you also have a well-intentioned employee. And even well-intentioned employees are impacted by the incentives of the system they're in. So for example, a well-intentioned employee who is being paid hourly, they might not intentionally be milking the clock by taking breaks and not putting effort, but they're going to allocate their effort in some of the wrong ways. For example, they might spend way more time than is necessary on certain parts of the job. They might just take their time a lot more and get too meticulous. They might get lost in their work. Now, I'm not proposing that we do bad quality job, but it can be the case where we just lose ourselves in our work, where we just take way more time than was necessary to do the kind of quality that we've promised to the customer, which therefore leads to the job taking longer, which drains your profit. So the incentives of the system are going to apply to bad intentioned actors and well-intentioned employees, and the outcome is going to be they're going to take longer to do a job, which means you're going to pay more to labor on that job, which brings us to point number 2, which is it is incredibly expensive to pay per hour. And I'm not even going to talk about paying per day. I do know there's some people who pay per day. Everything I say about per hour is even worse when you pay per day. All right, so absolutely don't pay per day. If you're doing that, switch to pay per hour, you'll make more money. But if you're paying per hour, we want to switch to pay per job. The expense here is enormous. The labor on your projects is probably anywhere from 30 to 45% of your total revenue. All right, so on $10,000 of business, we're spending anywhere from maybe $3,000 to $4,500 on just labor. And a person who has bad intentions, they could easily get half as much done in a day as they would if they were really exerting themselves and putting in the effort. So that bad intention employee could be costing you about $3,000 on this job, which is a huge amount of money. And in this case, it would be like 30%, all right, if they're just taking twice as long to do something. Someone who's not taking twice as long, but they're just 20% longer, it's $600 to $1,500, which is 6 to 15% on your business. Now, 6 to 15% on a business that's doing $300,000 per year is anywhere from $18,000 to $45,000 per year, okay? So this is super expensive, and you can't get around the incentives. It's not that they're bad people. It's not that you're a bad business owner. It's when you put people in a system has incentives. And when you're in a system that is hourly pay, the incentives are going to drive people to take longer to do the same job. And when that happens, it's going to be super costly to your bottom line. Don't even get me started on, bigger companies and these numbers are not far off. So it can cost you literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year just because of the system that you have people operating in. So now let's move on to the next part of the video, which is the problem with switching to pay per job, because it's not all perfect. Just like here we have a problem called people don't work efficiently, we have a problem that we need to look out for when we switch to pay per job. So no matter what system that you put people in, there's going to be incentives. And when there's incentives, you always got to look out for the problem with the incentive. So we've either got a quality problem or an efficiency problem. And so if we're paying hourly, then we have an efficiency problem. We have people who are taking way too long to do certain work, or we have people who are actively draining the clock and milking the clock. And the only solution to fixing efficiency is basically babysitting. Because the second you leave, that person might milk the clock. The second you're not keeping eyes on them saying, hey, you don't need to take as long on that, move on, that looks good. If you're not micromanaging that, then efficiency is going to be sacrificed. And so this one, the hourly problem to solve, is really hard to solve. You basically have to micromanage, which means you have to put your own time into it. And there are other ways. There are ways to build a good hourly workforce, but it's challenging. All right, so that's how we solve efficiency. But then over here with pay per job, we have a quality concern, which many people will point out. So they'll say, okay, well now you're just incentivizing someone to do it faster, and now they're going to cut corners. And that is the concern you've got to look out for when you switch to pay per job. So just like we have a problem to solve here, which is we need to figure out how to make sure these guys stay efficient on their hourly pay, here we say, hey, we need to make sure to have a way to maintain the quality when they're incentivized to move quickly. And so my experience is that this is much easier to do than this. It's much easier to make sure the quality is there than to make sure they're really efficient when I'm not there. If you've been in this business for a long time, then you can walk up to a house and you can tell if the prep work was done well or not, even if they've already put the paint on. Like, you can see if the job was done well. If they didn't caulk the cracks well, it stands out like a sore thumb. If they didn't prep, scrape, sand, and prime, and like prep these peeling areas well, you can tell. If they didn't clean up the underside of the siding boards where it was flaking off paint and seal that up the right way, you can just look at it and tell. You can see a bad paint job if you have the expertise of painting. Now, if you don't have the expertise of painting, you also can spot a bad paint job. And I know that because I've painted thousands of houses for customers, and customers always know. Customers spot that shit. All right, so it's pretty easy to see a bad paint job, because really what goes into, a good paint job is the prep work was done well, which if it's not done well, you can see it even when the new paint's applied. We use the right materials and the right amount of materials, which you can make sure of that with the purchase orders from the paint store to make sure we bought the right materials and we put on enough of the paint. And then we make sure the paint goes where it's supposed to go. Meaning the trim paint goes on the trim, the body paint goes on the body, the accent goes on the accent, and nothing goes on the brick. All right, so this is pretty easy to maintain quality. And when people are paid per job, they only get paid when the job is done to the standards. And you can do random check-ins on this job site to make sure that the quality is done, where you show up, you say, hey guys, I need to inspect the prep before you spray or trim. And you show up and you do an inspection, and it takes you 15 minutes. And then you could do another inspection when they spray, or you could do 3 or 4 inspections and drop in 3 times to a job, or check in every morning. And it's way less time than it would take to make sure people are operating efficiently. So yes, absolutely, you need to make sure that the job is done to a quality standard. But now, the benefit we have is now we have alignment with our crews. They want to get the job done efficiently, but well. Because if it's not done well, they have to go back and fix things. And going back to fix your work is insanely time consuming. Touch-ups are time consuming. Cleanup is time consuming. Redoing anything is time consuming. So the incentives are set up so that the best thing for a painter who's on pay per job, the best thing for them to do is to deliver a quality job as efficiently as possible, because they don't get paid until it's a quality job. So therefore the incentive is to do it as efficiently as possible, which is what you want as the business owner. You want the quality job and you want it done efficiently. And that's what your customer wants, because the happiest customers are the customers that get a quality job done as fast as possible. All right, so this aligns our incentives. So now we have a much more conducive environment to delivering on our promises to customers while protecting your bottom line and your profit, which is pretty important for you as the business owner. All right, so now let's take a look at how do we actually make this switch to pay per job. So there's four main considerations if you're going to switch to pay per job. And so the very first thing that has to be in place if you're going to pay per job is you need to have a measurement-based estimating system, which means we bid every job the exact same way. And so if you've seen any of the other videos that I have, or if you use Paint Scout or Estimate Rocket, the way a measurement-based estimating system works is there are production rates. Another way to say that is there are standard units of time to paint different things on a house. So let's just make a really simple house as an example. So we have our house here and we have a door. And so there's door trim. So there's, let's just say 1 hour for door trim. And then we have these vertical boards here. And let's say that's 20 feet of vertical trim. So we say, hey, it's 1 hour to paint 40 feet of trim. And then we've got another, let's just say 20 feet of fascia. It's 1 hour for 40 feet of fascia. And then we have the body. And we say, hey, it's 200 square feet. Sorry for my sloppy writing. 200 square feet is 1 hour to spray. Now, what we do when we have a measurement-based estimating system is we're measuring the whole house and saying, okay, there's 6 door trims, and we're bidding 1 hour for a door trim. So there's 6 hours bid for door trim. And we're going to pay, I'm just doing examples here, we're going to pay $20 per hour, but we're not really paying per hour, we're paying per estimated hour. All right, so if there's 6 door trims, that means we're paying $20 to do a door trim. And so a good painter is going to look at these standards, and when we break the house down into all its little pieces, we can say, hey, John, you're a great painter. How long do you think this door trim should take? And they say 30 minutes. And you're like, cool, I bid an hour for that. And I bid it at $20 an hour. So if you get that done in a half hour, you're making $40 an hour. Hey, John, how long for you to trim, these 2 vertical boards, 10 feet and 10 feet? He says, 20 minutes. I'm like, cool, I bid a half hour for that at $20 an hour. And so you can break down the job and show your crews that it's transparent. Like, this is a fair bid. And that's really critical that is in place so that every time it's a measurement-based system, the measurements are fair so that a good painter can see like, oh yeah, this seems legit. Like, I should be able to beat those budgets, because what we want is we want to give people the opportunity to actually make more money than hourly if they're efficient. So this actually, for the right people, for the motivated ones, the well-intentioned ones, they're going to look at this system and say, I can make more money on this. I'm actually going to get rewarded for working harder. I want that. All right, so we have to have a measurement-based estimating system in place in order to do this, so that there's transparency, so that on any given job, I can say, I bid 40 hours for this. Let me show you where. Not that we're going to do that on every job, but we could. So if people complain, I can say, well, what's off here? Because I got the trim. Did I miss something? And sometimes maybe you did, and you should adjust your bid for that. All right, so that it's all fair for everybody. So everyone has a great opportunity to make money. All right, so that's the first thing that needs to be in place. The next thing that's going to be in place, okay, we got that down. Now we're going to actually tell them. You just got to tell your crew, hey guys, so this is the last payroll that we're going to be on hourly pay. We're going to be switching to performance pay. So we're going to do a meeting on Friday. I'm going to walk you guys through that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to walk them through the next job. Say, so this next job, instead of paying you guys hourly, I always bid jobs for how many hours, and this is a 60-hour job. So instead of paying you guys hourly, I'm going to pay you for the 60 hours. And if you finish it in 45, I'm still going to pay you 60 hours. And if you finish it in 75, I'm still going to pay you 60 hours. All right, because I want to reward you guys for kicking ass and beating the budgets, but I don't want to be losing money myself if you guys took too long on a project. All right, so we'll go through this next job. I'm going to show it to you, and that's how we'll do it next week. Sound good? So we do a meeting, and then I'd show them, hey, I'm going to show them, hey, this is how I bid. This is what the standards are. This is how many hours. This is the plan for the house. Why you should be able to beat the budget on it. Cool. And then I would tell them, this is, John, you're going to get paid, you're going to get paid on this house, whatever, $1,500. And Jim, you're going to get paid $1,200 because maybe John's the foreman. Whether you guys finish it in 1 day or 3 days, doesn't matter. All right, so we're going to show them how that all breaks down. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is prepare to replace people. Because what's going to happen is the well-intentioned guys, they're going to like it because they're going to make more money. And the guys who are not well-intentioned are not going to like it, and they're going to quit. And when those guys who didn't like it, when they quit, it actually makes it better for the well-intentioned guys, because those guys were carrying the weight. They were the ones that were doing the good work, and the other guy was taking all the breaks. And so when you're on a two-man, let's just say a two-man crew, and you're the one that's moving fast, and you're the one that's efficient, and you're the one that's working hard, and then there's another guy who just keeps taking breaks, you're gonna do one of two things. You're either gonna take breaks with them, which takes your well-intentioned guys and makes them not as good, or you're just gonna be like resentful and pissed off and maybe not work as hard yourself, or you're just gonna be pissed. And it's gonna bring down the average of the job because of this other guy. So you are gonna probably lose some people when you make this change, but the people you lose were the ones who were milking the clock. The people you lose were the ones that weren't putting in their effort. The people you lose were holding back the people you don't lose. All right, now you start to create an even better environment for performance, and that's it. All right, so that's gonna be how you actually make the switch and some expectations to have. You just gotta make that switch because it's costing you a boatload of money to not have this set up. All right, so last thing we're gonna go through is I'm gonna jump over to Excel sheet. I'm gonna put a link to this Excel sheet below the video in the comments so you can go and make a copy. So let me jump over to my computer and I'm gonna show you how you actually do the math to calculate how much people get paid. All right, so this spreadsheet is gonna help you calculate how much to pay every painter. So up here at the top, you'll see it says employee painter performance pay, which means pay per job. If you're using subcontractors, you should already be on performance pay because you should just be giving them a job and telling them how much you're gonna pay at the end of the job. So in this case, we're gonna assume that this is just for employees. But if you're a subcontractor, anyone who uses employees can use this model. So this spreadsheet is going to be linked below this video. So you can go down and open it. So click the link, but you're not going to be able to edit this one. So go File, Make a Copy, and it's going to open another one, and then you can rename it, and you'll have your own version that you can edit. So this is going to be the painter calculation. All right, you're just going to fill in the green boxes, and it's going to calculate everything. So you're going to put in the client name, the job size, how many hours you budgeted, the budgeted pay per hour, and then total budgeted pay. So this is going to be basically your budget, and then you're going to put each painter in here with the name, their hourly rate, and then how many hours they worked on the project. So let me show you an example over here. And again, you could just go File, Make a Copy, and you can just do one of these on every single job. You can also go click right here and go Duplicate, and you'll have another one, and you can name this the Smith job, and then you can duplicate it again and name it the Johnson job, or whatever. Okay, so that's how you can use this sheet to calculate performance pay. Because what we need to take into account is different painters have different hourly rates, because one guy's a foreman, one guy's a helper, or whatever. And then different guys work different hours. Maybe a guy was sick on the job and one guy worked 30 hours, the other worked 10. So this is how it works. We go, John Smith, job size was 4,000. When you estimated the project, you estimated it for 60 hours. And when you estimated the project, you estimated for $25 per hour. So that means you've estimated to pay $1,500 for labor on this project. That's how you estimated the job. All right, that doesn't mean what people are going to get paid. That's just the rate you use to come up with your estimates. So let's put some painters in here. We'll just put two. So we'll say we've got Roy, who's at $27 an hour is his base rate. So we could change that from hourly rate to base rate. And he worked 20 hours on the project. And then we have Jay, his base rate's $23 an hour, and he worked 20 hours on the project. So they both worked the same number of hours, and this is going to calculate the rest of it for you. So it says, okay, he did 50% of the hours, so he gets 50% of the budgeted hours of that 60. So he gets paid 30 hours at his rate of 27, which is $810. But he finished the job ahead of schedule, so the actual hourly pay he earned was $40.50. He got paid $810 on this project. And then over here, Jay over here went and also got 50% hours, so he gets 30% of the hours. His total pay is $690. His actual pay is $34.50. If we go to a little more complicated example, on example 2, we'll use the same project, but we're going to assume that we have 3 painters and they worked different amounts and they all have different pay. So in this case, we've got Roy, who's at $27 an hour. He worked 20 hours. Jay, at 23, worked 20. And then we've got Tom, who's maybe a brand new guy who just helped out for a little bit, 18 bucks an hour, worked 5 hours. So in this case, it does the calculations again where Roy was 44% of the hour, so he's getting paid for 27. His total pay was 720 bucks, 36 an hour, and it's just going to calculate all of this. So I could go into a lot more detail, but you can just kind of play around on this. So I just want to give you the example. So that's the math. That's how you do it. All right, guys, so that's how you can switch to paying per job. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one. If you got any questions or comments, drop them below. Go ahead and download that spreadsheet so you can use it, and let me know how it goes.